This video is going to demonstrate how to use the selection tool inside of Adobe Photoshop. To do this, I'm going to use this photo found on Flickr taken by Alessandro Pinna. As you can see, it has some reserved rights, and if you can use this if you attribute it, if you use it for non-commercial purposes, and if you reuse this license. So this is the Creative Commons license. I'm going to go ahead and download this image and open it up inside of Adobe Photoshop. So I click on the download button, and I want to choose the original size of the photo, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. And then I click on the arrow and I click Show in Finder. This will let me see this file. And I can go ahead and close out of my internet. And I'm going to drag this image into Photoshop. And now I have this image inside of Photoshop. As you can see, it's a bunch of different cookie cutter shapes. There's different colors, and they're all laid out in a nice arrangement. What I would like to do, though, is learn how to select different things and go through some of the selection tools. If you look at the top left of your tools, the first one down is the Elliptical Marquee tool. If I select on this tool, and I want to select, let's say, this circle cookie cutter, I can start clicking and dragging, and you will see black and white lines that appear. These are called marching ants, and I can drag these around until I have a selection of the blue. Now if I select in the wrong spot, I can always press spacebar while I'm dragging, and you will notice that my selection moves with me. I have not let go of the mouse. I am still dragging, and I can move this around where I want it to be just by pressing the spacebar. So go ahead and try selecting just this spot here. So I select this, and now the purpose of selecting, I probably should say, is, or explain, is that you can only edit that part of the image. So right now we've gone in, oops, I just unselected it. So I have this selected. If I grabbed, let's say, a paintbrush, and I wanted to paint part of this image, notice how if I paint, it's only filling in where that selection is. So that's the purpose of selections. It allows you to only edit a specific area of the image. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. So that's one way to use the selection tool, is to use the Elliptical Marquee tool. Also, there's another tool here, probably you should have seen this one first, is the Rectangular Marquee tool. This one will allow you to select a rectangle of an area by clicking and dragging. I'm going to deselect that by pressing Command D. You might put that in your notes. Command D will deselect. There are some other selection tools that I would like to go through and show you. There's a single row marquee tool and a single column marquee tool. We won't go into those too much, but essentially it'll select an entire column or an entire row. That way you can copy and move those pixels over. The next tool I would like to go through is the lasso tool. The lasso tool lets you select a certain area just by clicking and dragging around roughly around the image. So this is the lasso tool here, and you can see I select that. A great use for the lasso tool is rough selections. When you want a selection but it doesn't have to be precise. Let's say that I wanted to get rid of this part of the image and make it blend into the background. If I use the lasso tool, I can select around it roughly, and then I can go up to Edit, Fill, and I can choose the contents to be content aware. What this will do is it will go through and it will blend in the image with the background and try to get rid of what's in there. Now it did an okay job but not a great job because it saw too much of the other images in there as well. So that doesn't work so much in this scenario, but in many cases the lasso tool is a great tool to use. I'm going to see if I can draw it a little bit closer. If you are trying to get rid of just a small area, and let me see if I can do it again with a closer selection. So again, if I go up to Edit, Fill, Content Aware, I make sure that's selected, I click OK. And again, it's pulling in too many pixels from around the area, so that's not going to work in this case. But that is another tool that you can use when the shape is not a normal shape. You can use the lasso tool to select around and do a rough selection. After the lasso tool, if you click and hold, there's the polygon lasso tool. The polygon lasso tool allows you to click on a point. Let's say I wanted to select this diamond. I could click on the point at the top, and then I could click on the next point. I could click on the next point, and I click on the next point, and then I come back to the beginning, And you'll notice how my cursor now has a circle next to it. That means it's going to close that shape off. I can click on it, and now it has created a selection of the diamond. That is the polygon lasso, the polygon lasso tool, which works well for very rigid, straight lines. It works great for selecting. Now the next tool, if you click and hold and you go to the magnetic lasso tool, what this one does is it's going to look at different pixels and try to select based on what the pixels look like. So for example, if I wanted to select around this turtle, I could click in one area. Now I have lifted up on my mouse button and I'm just going to kind of move my cursor right around the edge, and I'm not even pressing the mouse button. I'm just going right around the edge, and this is making the selection for me. And so you can see this is a little bit more accurate, actually a lot more accurate than just using the lasso tool. This is nicer than the polygon lasso tool because it is more precise and it's following around curves as well. And then I get back to the beginning, and again I have that circle and I can select. Let's say that I want to save this selection because this is a pretty impressive selection, and let's say I want to change the color of it, but I don't want to have to select it over and over and over again every time. I can actually save time by saving my selections. To do that, once you have a selection made, for example, I have this turtle selected, I can go up to select on the menu bar, and then I go down to where it says Save Selection, and I can go ahead and give this a name, and I'm going to call this Turtle. What this will do is it's going to save a new channel selection, so that way whenever I need to get back to the turtle, all I do is I load this selection. I click on OK, and now I have my turtle saved. If I deselect this, and if I select something else, let's say I select this heart, and I just go around and I select this heart, and I change my mind and I decide I want to show my turtle again. All I have to do to get that selection back is go back up to Select, choose Load Selection, and there you can see my turtle selection is there. I select it, and my turtle is once again selected. So that is using the magnetic lasso tool, and that is also showing you how to save and load your selections. The next tool I would like to show you is the Quick Selection tool. The Quick Selection tool allows you to paint almost as though it's a paintbrush, and it will select pixels that look similar to each other within a certain area based on what the pixels look like. So if I click inside this lamb area and I click, and that one actually filled up pretty good, notice how it filled in everywhere just by clicking. I'm going to deselect and just do another one. Let's say I choose this one. See how it just fills in? So the Quick Selection tool is a wonderful tool for selecting quickly. Now let's say that you wanted to add multiple selections. Let's say I want to select all of the red cookie cutters on the inside. I could press Shift on the keyboard, and then with Shift selected, I can add to my selection even though these are not touching. So I can go ahead and select all of the red cookie cutters on the inside. And if I notice that maybe I selected too much, maybe I don't want this much of the red, I can press Alt on the keyboard, and Alt will subtract from my selection. So Shift will add to my selection, and Alt will subtract from the selection. And as I do this, I can subtract so I get the selection just right. And once I have the inside of all of my red cookie cutters, I'm going to go ahead and save this as well. So I go up to Select, Save Selection, and I'm going to call it Inside Red. Now, whenever you name your selections, you want to name it something that's going to help you remember in the future what it is. Whether you're selecting hair, maybe a certain part of the image, you want to make it so that you know what it is, you can easily access it. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now I have that selection. I'm going to deselect by pressing Command D. Let's say I wanted to select all of the blue, and I wanted to do it a different way. There's another selection tool that we can use. The Magic Wand tool selects pixels that are the same color pixel or within a radius. You can see up here it says tolerance, and mine is set to 32. The lower the tolerance, the closer the pixels have to be together. The higher the tolerance, the more space you have between pixels, or the more difference there can be in the color of the pixels. So right now, if I click on blue, let me click again. I'm going to click right there. There we go. So I clicked on blue and it selected all of the blue um, cookie cutters. Now, if yours did not select all of the blue cookie cutters, it might be that there's a selection at the top that is not chosen. I'm going to deselect this and I'm going to check off contiguous. Contiguous means the pixels have to be touching in the selection. If I click on just the circle, notice how it selected just that blue circle. If I want to select all of the blue pixels throughout this image, even though they're not touching, they're not contiguous, I can uncheck this box. I'm going to deselect, and now if I select inside, notice now how it has selected just those parts. And I can go up to select, and I'm going to save selection. So I give it a name, and now with that selection made, I can again choose my paintbrush, and if I paint, it's only going to paint inside the selected areas, which it looks like I don't have that much of an area selected. So the other thing that you can do, it looks like there's a small selected area, but it's not selecting the whole area. So let's say that you need to adjust or change your selection to make it bigger. If you go up to select, you can modify your selection by adding a couple of things. You can contract it, bring it in. You can expand it, make it bigger. You can smoothen it out. You can even feather it if you want it to have a soft edge. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and expand it. And I think I'm going to expand it by 5 pixels. And now you can see it's expanded my selection out. And I can paint inside of these selections. And I can make my new color, my cookie colors, a new color. So the purpose of selections is to allow you to edit specific pixels while not affecting other pixels. You can save selections, you can load selections, you can even modify how the selection looks by going up to select and changing its properties. If I wanted to go back and fix that, I could go up to edit or select, load selection, and again I can find the blue cutters, and maybe I change this back to a color blue. I'll make my brush a little bit bigger. So now I can go in and I can paint these different areas. Now again, I saved my selection before I had expanded, so I can go up to select, modify, expand, and I did it by 5 pixels. So now I can just go in and I can fix this to make it all look blue again. So this is a brief overview on how to use selections inside of Photoshop. As you get used to using selections, it will make your photoshopping more efficient and much easier. Happy photoshopping!